Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As I was introduced, my name is Estella, and I'm from Brazil. And I just graduated from my bachelor's degree last spring. And today I'd like to present my graduation research thesis that goes under the title of Leadership Education for Youth Development and Social Change. And to start off, I would like to share why did I decide to talk about this topic. So it all started from a reflection that I had about education provision and the quality of education being provided. So currently, nowadays, many countries have considerably high rates of education provision, and that's great. Many students, many youth have the chance to receive education, but when we stop and start to reflect about the quality of the education they are receiving, it's not always the highest. And that's the case for Brazil, where I'm from. And with that in mind, I start to think of what are other ways that we can guarantee that the students will have a high quality educational experience. And that's when I came across leadership education. So leadership education is a new area of studies, but there are many elements to it that can add to the standard education that many countries can provide for students and can offer a shift on how education is done and what are the outcomes of education. And my main research question is, how can leadership education foster youth development for social change? So from now, I would like to share major themes that I covered in the literature review, and I'll be starting with the topics of society, education, and violence. So Galton, the father of peace studies, he stated there are 3 types of violence, and one of them being structural violence. So structural violence opposed to direct physical violence that can be easily perceived. Structural violence is hidden in the foundation of society, and it's present, as the name states, in the structure of social institutions, for example, the school. And on the same topic, Illich, he said that educational systems that are permeated with structural violence, they make the subjects confuse process with substance. Sorry, there's, I think, a formatting error. Yeah, and so they make individuals confuse process with substance, teaching with learning, and a diploma with competence. So, in other words, Illich was trying to say that sometimes receiving a diploma does not necessarily mean that the individual has all the knowledge that they have been entitled to. And to give a more specific example, Freire, in his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he described the system, the educational system in Brazil, as being based on a banking system. So teachers, they would deposit the knowledge into the students, but that would be the end. So no further critical reflection or critical reflection skills were being fostered into the students, and for that, he believed that conscientization, in Portuguese, conscientização, would be the way for students to really make their educational experience more valuable. And critical reflection is one of the elements of leadership education. And as we had a bit of an explanation of critical reflection early in the previous presentation, critical reflection, according to Harvey and James, is the bridge between knowledge and experience. So when individuals can apply critical reflection on their daily lives, they're able to connect experience and knowledge. And from that connection, they are able to get a new insight, a new understanding of their daily life. And emotional intelligence, according to Boyat, is a skill that people can use to positively use their personal and peer emotional information for a desired outcome. So emotionally intelligent people, they're able to read the room, see what is the emotional information in the room, and they're able to use that in a way that they want for their desired goal. And more imagination is the creative aspect of leadership education. And according to Johnson, more imagination enables individuals to find new solutions for current problems, but without adding new elements to it. So how is that possible? So Johnson explained that in order to employ more imagination, individuals, they have to have a complete understanding of their reality, of what's the role of every player in the situation, of all elements. And once they have that complete understanding of their situation, they're able to rearrange and reorganize elements and players for their desired outcome without having to add any new elements for their current problems. And if leadership education is implemented, one of the types of leadership that can emerge is the adaptive leadership. And as you can see in this image, adaptive leaders, they're able to connect with different players in the same situation, and they do that in order to achieve their goals. So according to Heifetz, adaptive leaders, they have the ability to get on the balcony and see the entire room, see the bigger picture. And when they do that, they're able to see what are possible connections that can be made in this situation. And with that skill, they're able to tackle multi-layered problems, complex problems, and they see connections that would be impossible if they were to analyze the situation from the ground level perspective. And as of social change, well, social change is a quite of a complex topic, and it can be sometimes quite controversial, and there are many elements to it. But in this research, we consider social change to be positive and to be a long-term process. And that process of social change starts with interpersonal and interpersonal development. So now I'd like to share my research methodology. So I conducted 3 types of data collection. So first, I did a document review of a student essay. It was a self-reflective essay on the author's values and experiences. Then I conducted a participant observation in a leadership seminar workshop. And that participant observation gave me insights about group dynamics, how collective thinking can happen, and how can leadership seminar students apply their theoretical knowledge into their actions. And also I conducted 5 interviews. So first, I interviewed a group of pedagogical coordinators in a Brazilian school. Second, I interviewed a leadership course instructor. Then third, I interviewed an NGO founder from Colorado, United States. That NGO fosters multicultural leadership and mindfulness. Then fourth, I interviewed an NGO founder from Ireland. And this NGO founder, he promotes communication skills into the youth in an online platform. And lastly, I interviewed the founder of a school located in the countryside of Nepal. So it's a very diverse pool of subjects, and then later you'll see how all of that gives a good perspective of how leadership education can be implemented in different cultural settings. So now in the discussion section, I would like to share my major findings and my personal opinion on them. So first, to talk about structural violence. So 4 out of 5 interviewees, they shared cases, examples of structural violence that they have experienced. So for example, the NGO founder from Colorado, US, her name is Mestas, she shared about the national walkout protest against gun violence that happened in the US last March. And she shared that the students, they wanted to share their solidarity to the victims of gun violence in the US by walking out from their classrooms in a non-violent way. And in that situation, some school principals, they were against that, and they placed threats onto the students by saying that if they walked out from their classrooms, they would be punished to the extent that they could be even expelled from the school. And of course, when the students, they hear that, they will doubt themselves, should I, have my right to express how I feel about this incident, or should I just stay in the classroom and not be expelled from the school? And while some people might be against the decision of the school principals to think that it was not correct for them to do that, not all of them would call this decision of the principals as an act of violence, but Mestas did. She said that this was an act of violence because when the principals decided to place threats on the students, they were taking away the rights of freedom of expressions that the students have as being citizens of the country. And I have the image of the iceberg here because that shows how deeply structural violence can go. And that is because in the case of this protest, the decision and the action by the school principals was somehow socially accepted because of the authority that they have within the school structure. And that's where structural violence lies. It's in the structure of the school, and because the school principals are the highest authority within the school, their actions, as wrong as they were tolerated and somehow respected in a way because they have the authority. Even though it was not beneficial for the students, and especially in the long run, the students were not being encouraged to express themselves. And there were three main topics that were found to be connected to leadership education. So the first one is intrapersonal growth. So through the analysis of the student essay that reflected about the author's values and experiences, that exercise of writing about your own values and experience made the author more aware and intentional of what experiences and what values they want to have in order to grow themselves as leaders. So by doing a simple exercise of writing a letter to yourself or writing an essay that can critically reflect upon every experience you've had your entire life, made the author more aware and intentional of what they should do for the future. And that's how interpersonal growth takes its place. And as for interpersonal development, the founder of the school in Nepal is a good example. His name is Bista. So Bista, he's from the countryside of Nepal, and he wanted to provide good quality education for their village, for his community. And because he lacked lots of resources, he decided to engage the entire community to build the school from the ground. And that shows two things. First, emotional intelligence. So Bista was able to emotionally engage the entire community, even the elder ones, to come together to achieve this goal and build this goal. Also, Bista's initiatives show characteristics of adaptive leadership. That is because Bista was able to get on the balcony, see the situation as it was, see his goal, and identify how he could gather together not only the community members, the students, but also overseas donors to make his goal a possibility, a reality. And in terms of communication skills, the two NGO founders, Masters from the United States and McKiernan from Ireland, they both promote workshops and activities that encourage the students and the youth to voice out their opinions. And that's possible because of two elements. So first, they created a safe space for the students to voice out their opinions without the fear of being judged. And second, they believe that the youth, they have the potential to be leaders now. So both of them, it was really interesting. They used different words, but they both mentioned the idea that people have that the younger generation will be the leaders of the future. It's quite common for us to hear that here and there, like, oh, the younger generation now will be the leaders of the future. That's why we do this for them. But both of them, Masters and McKenna, they share that actually the youth, the younger generation now, they can be the leaders of the present. We just have to give them opportunities. We have to give them platforms to speak up. And that's how communication skills is very important in leadership development, especially among youth. And lastly, to conclude this discussion section, I would like to share this quote that really changed my perspective of leadership development. So this quote is by Mestas, the NGO founder in the United States, and she shared that people will come to her and say, Mestas, you have become a leader despite your circumstances. Despite all the unfavorable circumstances that you have experienced your entire life, you became a leader. And as much she understood that those comments came from a place of respect and compassion, she also said that it was actually because of her unfavorable circumstances that she was able to become the leader that she is today. And for me, that was really refreshing because sometimes we think that proper development will only happen if we have the right circumstances. if we have the right setting. And of course, that's true for some cases. But if we are able to expand our awareness, expand our understanding, how challenges can also be a platform for growth, and I think that's how leadership education can really contribute to expand the learning experience and enhance the learning experience for students worldwide. And now I'd like to share some limitations and future directions of my study. And so, okay. So first, I interviewed two NGO founders. They conduct several leadership programs. But for this exploratory research, I didn't have the chance to interview the participants of such programs and to get an insight from their perspective as being participants of the program. So I'd like to do that in the future. And also, I'd like to investigate more what's the impact of young leaders into their communities. How does the community perceive the young leader emerging in their own environment, and how are they receptive of that? So I'd like to research that in the future. And just in conclusion, for my graduation thesis, through my research, I could shed light on how leadership education can impact youth development and can be an addition to the education experiences and really enhance the education experience because it gives the students more autonomy for them to decide and be more mindful and intentional of what experiences they want to gather, and also gives them tools to better interact not only with themselves but with their communities in order to achieve their goals. And well, that's the end of my presentation. I was a bit nervous, but yeah, I'll be happy. You did that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Obstacles, opportunities.